Jai.
Jai.
Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kund Radha Kund Ki Govardhan Ki Jai.
Jai.
Vrindam Ki Jai.
Jai.
Mayapurdam Ki Jai.
Jai.
Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai.
Jai.
Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai.
Jai.
Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare
All
Krishna.
glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Namo
Go.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri
Jai
Chaitanya
Chaitanya Jaya
Nityananda.
Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya
Jaya
Dvaita
Dvaita
Chandra
Chandra
Jaya
Jaya
Gaura
Gaura
Bhakta
Bhakta
Vrinda.
Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya
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 Shri
Shri
Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya
Nityananda.
Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya
Jaya
Dvaita
Dvaita
Chandra
Chandra
Jaya
Jaya
Gaura
Gaura
Bhakta
Bhakta
Vrinda.
Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya
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 Shri
Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya
Jaya
Dvaita
Dvaita
Chandra
Chandra
Jaya
Jaya
Gaura
Gaura
Bhakta
Bhakta
Vrinda.
Vrinda.
Jai. Reading from Sri Caitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, Chapter 17, the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya in his youth. And we're starting with text 246. Vishnu Gadaprabhu usually has one devotee who knows, who speaks Bangla, read the Bengali. Is that a person here? They could do that.
Yes, Sutapa Mataji is here if she is up to it.
If she's willing to, that would be nice. Instead of me mangling it.
Mother Sutapa? Or
I can check.
Krishna Kirtan Prabhu?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
She's responding?
Not yet.
Okay.
She's muted, I think.
Yeah, I know.
विजय आचार्य घरे से रात्रि रहिला प्रातः काले भक्त सबे घरे लना गेला.
Vishnu Gadad, does he usually do the full word for word also?
No.
No, so just translation. Okay. Translation. That night, the Lord stayed in the house of Vijay Acharya. In the morning, the Lord took all his devotees and returned home.
Yeah, I don't have the cancer in front of me.
You can mute
I
others.
can read. Yeah.
I think she's just telling us she cannot read. She's on the phone.
Can't
So.
reach it. Okay, no problem.
Yes, Mataji, yes.
Ah.
My laptop is not working today. I'm trying.
Yeah.
So if it
just
work, yes, I will get
just-
back to you.
Just send Krishna Kirtan Prabhu a text message, a chat message, then he will know.
Okay.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for trying. I'll read the translation once again. That night, the Lord stayed in the house of Vijay Acharya. In the morning, the Lord took all his devotees and returned home. So just first of all, I have no idea who Vijay Acharya is. I looked the name up, and this is the only reference in all of Prabhupada's books. I couldn't find anything else. But just remembering in the context from last week's Chaitanya Charitamrita reading, that last week Caitanya Mahaprabhu was very ecstatic. He was hearing all of the pastimes of Krishna, all of the Vrindavan pastimes of Krishna from Srivas Thakur. And he was in such ecstasy hearing it. And actually, he was listening to the reading of those pastimes all night long. And then after that, all night.
But actually, very few people comparatively understand who Lord Chaitanya is.
Can someone explain what's going on here with the sound there?
So this was the challenge given to Lord Chaitanya's associates headed by at that time.
Actually, Pranath Prabhu can mute others.
It sounds like that sounded like Vishnu Gadaprabhu. Was that recording from last week playing somehow?
I did. I just
Okay.
muted. Yeah, it looks like the pre last week's recording. Somebody's
Okay.
I just
Okay.
muted.
So anyway, the context of what's happening now from last week's reading, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is hearing all of the very amazing from all the different seasons and all the Vrindavan pastimes of Krishna from Srivas Thakur, and he actually was listening to that all night long. And then in the morning, when the morning came, then they did Krishna Leela plays. So it was a very ecstatic time. And then after all this incredible Rasika, wonderful pastimes that the Lord was relishing, that woman came and touched his feet, that Brahmani came and touched his feet, and he was immediately disturbed and felt that this was not proper, and he went and jumped in the Ganges to bathe. So this is interesting. So remember these two parts of last week's reading, the ecstatic Vrindavan pastimes, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is such a strict sannyasi that a woman touched his feet, a non-disciple touched his feet, they immediately ran and jumped in the river. So keep these two different aspects in mind as we hear what's going on this week, because it'll be related. Text 247. Someone can read the Bangla.
Yes. So I know you made a comment. Is it only because the human touched the feet of the sannyasi? That's why it's made. Last time we discussed the touching of the feet is primarily not.
Well, that's how Prabhupada described. I'm sure there could be various reasons why he was disturbed. Of course, one of the rules is, as Prabhupada explained, is that non-disciples shouldn't touch the feet. And in general, one should be very cautious about letting anyone touch their feet because of the karmic transfer is a great responsibility. But the other thing that wasn't discussed in the purport, but is discussed in other places, is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not allow women to touch him or mix closely like that with women due to his status as a sannyasi. Although actually, I suppose he was he hadn't taken sannyas at that time, so maybe that's not actually applicable.
Okay.
But in any case, it was not a proper standard of behavior, and he was disturbed by it and ran and jumped in the river. So maybe my speculation about him being a sannyasi is not appropriate in this particular instance, because this is during his youth before he took sannyas.
Okay. So
Text 247.
एकदिन गोपी भावे गृहते बसिया गोपी गोपी नाम लय विषन्नहाना.
One day the Lord, in the ecstasy of the gopis, was sitting in his house. Very morose in separation, he was calling, "Gopi, Gopi." So this is also interesting. Ekadina literally means one day. So it could be like, oh, one day this happened, like almost like once upon a time. So one day this happened, or Ekadina, one day might also mean that right after the activities previously of hearing Krishna's pastimes from Srivas Thakur and all that occurred, one day meaning the next day this occurred. So whether it was the next day or sometime after, I'm not 100% sure. But in any case, on this day, he was in such ecstasy of the gopis, which is also natural for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after a whole day, a whole night long, all night long, hearing the pastimes of Krishna. So he was in that ecstasy, and he was calling Gopi, Gopi. Actually, the Bengali Gopi, Gopi Namalai. He was taking the name of the gopis, calling out the name of the gopis. Instead of Krishna Nam, he was doing Gopi Nam. Text 248.
एको पादुया आइला प्रभु के देखिते Gopi Gopi Nama Suni Lagila Bolite.
Translation. A student who came to see the Lord was astonished that the Lord was chanting Gopi Gopi. Thus he spoke as follows. Actually, the Bengali doesn't say astonished, but Prabhupada puts that in, that he was astonished, and why he did that will become clear as the narration goes on. Anyone have a comment or discussion about any of this so far? I'm not sure how much to do discussion and explanation and how much just reading. Okay, text 249.
On the comment what you mentioned, yes, based on the series of mentioned, so that expression can be understood that he's surprised why he's calling Gopi Gopi. That's the reason when it's meant to be saying there. But 249. Krishna Nama Nalao Kene Krishna Nama Dhanya Gopi Gopi Bolileva Kiva Hoya Punya.
Translation. This is very interesting. This is this just from one word in this this verse. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could understand the mind of the student. Translation. Why are you chanting the names Gopi Gopi instead of the holy name of Lord Krishna, which is so glorious? What pious result will you achieve by such chanting? Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. It is said, Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vigyehana Bujaya. No one can understand the activities of a pure devotee. A student or neophyte devotee could not possibly understand why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting the name of the gopis, nor should the student have asked the Lord about the potency of chanting Gopi Gopi. The neophyte student was certainly convinced of the piety in the chanting of Krishna's holy name, but this sort of attitude is also offensive. Dharma vratya tyago hutadi sarva shubha kriya samyam api pramada. To chant the holy name of Krishna in exchange for the achievement of piety is an offense. This, of course, was unknown to the student. Thus, he innocently asked, what piety is there in the chanting of the name Gopi? He did not know that there is no question of piety or impiety. The chanting of the holy name of Krishna or the holy name Gopi is on the transcendental platform of loving affairs. Since he was not expert in understanding such transcendental activities, his question was merely impudent. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, apparently greatly angry at him, reacted as follows. So that one word that the student used that indicated his mind to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was punya. Ki bahaya punya, what's the piety in chanting Gopi Gopi? He's saying that the chanting of the holy name of Krishna is pious, but where's the piety in chanting Gopi Gopi? So this attributing this quality of punya or piety, material piety, to the holy name is one of the 10 offenses against the holy name. Dharma vrata tyagu hutadi sarva shubha kriya samyam api pramada. So equating the chanting of the holy name with dharma, with ordinary religious principles, ordinary religious practices. Vrata, taking vows. Tyaga, renunciation. Hutadi, performing fire sacrifices and all these other related karma kandya rituals. Sarva Shubha Kriya, all sorts of materially auspicious activities. Samyam, to consider them equal with, to consider that the same as chanting the holy name is pramada. This is offensive. This is madness. This is certainly mistaken. And because of that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became angry. Uh, let's see. So this is illustrating that the student had a mundane appreciation of the chanting of the chanting of the holy name, and therefore he could understand neither the chanting of the holy name nor Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstasy of chanting Gopi Gopi. Text 250, or if there's any discussion first, then text 250.
There's a a parampara, they chant Radharani's name. And I also learned that according to our Prayojana Guru, Acharya, which is Raghunath Das Goswami, glorifying Srimati Radharani, serving, understanding Srimati Radharani, the highest perfection, serving. So I know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked us to chant Hare Krishna. So what would be a followers of devotee of Krishna consciousness movement react to those situations?
Okay, I actually have some notes on this. I was going to discuss this after the next verse, but this is interesting and important. First point is that if we go back to a previous verse in 247, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting this, it says Ekadina Gopi Bhava. So first of all, his chanting, he was in Gopi Bhava. Ekadina Gopi Bhava Grihe Te Vashiya Gopi Gopi Namalaya Vishama Hana. So first of all, that means he was chanting from a stage of perfection, not from a stage of sadhana. That's one point, that this was a moment of ecstasy, that he was chanting Gopi Gopi, or the names of the gopis, whatever names. There's that, I mean, and there's countless gopis. There's, let's see, Lalita Cha, Vishaka Cha, Chitra Champaka Malika, Tunga Vidyandaleko Cha, Ranga Devi Sudevika. There's the Astasakis, and then they each have their different manjaris and their different types of gopis. Hey, Hare Krishna, look who's here.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
And you can see my wife there in the background. She just got back from the temple. So there's all these gopis, and we know that worship of Radha is even more intimate and even more loving and even higher than worshiping Krishna himself. And for that reason, we don't worship Krishna alone. We worship Radha Krishna. So you could say, then we should also be chanting Radhe Radhe or Gopi Gopi. So there are some things that Prabhupada said about that. This is a remembrance from Tamal Krishna Goswami. He wrote in one of his books, like a patient parent, Srila Prabhupada answered all our questions. I had asked whether I could chant the names of the gopis, thinking that it would be beneficial to remember Krishna's purest devotees. Lord Chaitanya had once chanted Gopi Gopi, feeling the ecstasy of separation from Krishna. Though I had no right to imitate such exalted sentiments, Srila Prabhupada did not chastise me for my indiscretion. My question was more whimsical than presumptuous. It was like that of a small child who, while having a story read to him by his father, asks a question out of context. The father, rather than rejecting, satisfies his inquisitive son, and then again brings the child back to the story. So Srila Prabhupada patiently replied, but at last indicated the preferred method, that by singing the prayers, Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha, all of the gopis would be included. So this is one thing Prabhupada said about that yes, chanting the gopis is there, but there's a standard way of doing that. We have our Premadwani prayers. Another time actually more than once, talking about the chanting of the name of Radha. He said better to, instead of inventing something or doing something imaginative. He said, you sing this song, Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite, if you want to glorify Radharani. This is another conversation from 1975. Jaya Advaita Maharaj says, the names of Krishna as the spiritual master or the acharyas have chanted them, but sometimes I'll hear that our devotees will be chanting Krishna's name in different ways that I haven't heard in Kirtan. Prabhupada, I do not follow what you say, Jaya Advaita. Just like sometimes we'll hear our men, they'll be chanting. Like yesterday, I heard someone was chanting Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Nitai, Nitai Gaur. Like that, I'll hear different mantras. Someone is chanting Radhe, 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 like that at Kirtan. Prabhupada, well, that is not done by the acharyas, but there is no harm chanting Radhe, but sometimes it is degraded to make something new, an invention. Therefore, better to stick to Hare Krishna and Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Otherwise, just like the Sahajyas, they have invented Nitai Gaur, Radhe Sham, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. These things will come gradually, but they are not approved. They are called Chara Kirtan or concocted Kirtan. But there is no harm chanting Radhe Nitai Gaur, but better stick to this Pancha Tattva and Mahamantra. Just like Nitai Gaur, Radhe Sham, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, there is Nitai Gaur, Radhe Sham, but it is not approved. Mahajano Yena Kata Sapanta. So this explains some of the points about this I think, about chanting Gopi Gopi or even chanting the name of Radha, is that we follow in the footsteps of the acharyas. There's Prabhupada explained, there's Anukarana and Anusharana. Anukarana means imitating, that you blindly, without understanding and without realization, imitate your spiritual master or a past acharya. Just like, oh, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted Gopi Gopi, I'm also going to chant Gopi Gopi. But Anusharana means following in the footsteps, and following in the footsteps means understanding the example in light of the instructions. And the instruction, as Prabhupada explains here, that these names are all good, but the standard way, Mahajano Yena Gata Sapanta, is to chant Hare Krishna, to chant Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, to chant what's the Shri Vishakanvitamscha, Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha, and that way you're chanting the name of the gopis. To chant the bona fide songs of the acharyas, this is better. And so this is, otherwise the danger is there of Prakrita Sahaja. Sahaja means the easy path or the natural path. So devotional service is already Sahaja. It's already the easiest and most natural path. But Prakrita Sahaja means you twist that with some material conception. And you want to, instead of chanting Hare Krishna, you want to chant Radhe Radhe all day long, something like that. And Prabhupada was not very fond of that. And the other point is that we like to do things in the way that Prabhupada did them. Prabhupada chanted Kirtan. There's so many tapes of Prabhupada chanting Kirtan, and you'll never hear him chanting Radhe, 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 Radhe. He's always chanting Hare Krishna. He chants, generally speaking, he chants the appropriate prayers, the Mangalartik prayers, the Guru Puja prayers, or like that. And then Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya and Hare Krishna. And that's it. Actually, he didn't chant. Even generally, Prabhupada didn't even chant the names of the temple deities. He didn't chant Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, all of this. So keeping in mind Prabhupada's standard and liking to do things like Prabhupada did is a good thing. Again, we don't have to exactly imitate, and I'm not saying we should never chant the name of Radha or never chant the names of the deities. But keep in mind, Prabhupada's standard is a good thing that will keep us on the straight and narrow path, on the path of transcendental sahaja, this natural process of devotional service, which will very quickly elevate us. Just like, there's that story that Prabhupada told about there was an expert veterinarian, and he had a disciple or a student who was training under him. And one day they were called out to one man, And the man had a horse, and the horse had a huge swollen throat. So the veterinarian took a hammer and smashed the horse in the throat, and the swelling immediately went down, and the horse was better. So the student thought, oh, this is easy, I could do this. So he left his veterinarian teacher, and opened his own veterinarian practice. And everywhere he went, he just took out a hammer and smashed the animals in the neck. And instead of curing them, he was killing them. And this got back to the veterinarian, who said, you didn't understand that horse, that was a special case. The horse had swollen a watermelon, had swallowed a watermelon, and it got stuck in his throat. So I had to break it so he could swallow. So the disciple in that way misunderstood the whole thing, applied it blindly without understanding. So there's the names of the gopi is glorious, and the name of Radha is glorious, but we chant, basically, for the most part, we chant Hare Krishna. Is that
Yes, very nicely. Thank you. Very nicely.
Yeah. And another thing is, going back to the earlier point I said, is that Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he was chanting in Gopi Bhava, which is a stage of perfection. This is the stage Sambandha Abhideya. He was on the stage of Prayojana, chanting Gopi Gopi, and we're on the stage of Sambandha and Abhideya, of practice. And the process is the same, chanting the holy name, but we have to, at the stage of sadhana, we have to do things intelligently. And this is the intelligence, actually, that a sadhaka needs, that we're doing the same thing. We're chanting the holy name of the Lord. We're worshiping the gopis, and we're worshiping Krishna. All our temples, we have Radha Krishna. So we're, like Prabhupada also said, it's not that we boycott the gopis, but as sadhakas, we have a standard of practice that will, at the same time, help us advance very quickly and very smoothly to these higher stages and higher elevations of Krishna consciousness, and at the same time protect us from material misunderstandings, from prakrita sahajas and all these things. That's the beauty of the Krishna consciousness Prabhupada has given us, that we could read, like we're reading now in Caitanya Caritamrita, about Caitanya Mahaprabhu chanting like this. And we read in Krishna book and in Bhagavatam all these wonderful pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and we appreciate them and love them, and we aspire to them. But at the same time, the sadhaka has to have the intelligence and also the good guidance of how to apply this in a way so that it's actually fruitful. So anything else on that, or do we go to the next verse?
So basically, in Prayojana stage, it can be natural that the Radharani's name, Gopi's name can come by natural in Prayojana state. But at this time, sadhana stage, we must follow the footsteps or instructions.
Yes, that's part of it. But even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was always in the Prayojana stage, but still, he was still mainly chanting Krishna Nam. Or what to speak of Srila Prabhupada, who was at the highest stage of Krishna consciousness, but his own ecstasy was chanting Hare Krishna. And when a devotee chants Hare Krishna, he knows that Hare and Krishna is Radha Krishna. So that desire of chanting Radha Nam is fully satisfied for someone who actually understands what the Maha Mantra is. So that's also the ecstasy of the highest devotee, and also the teaching and the example of the highest devotee. So there's many reasons. And there are times like on Radhastami, or if you visit Vrindavan, then it's natural there's going to be some more chanting of Radha Nam, and we can relish that without going too overboard. But we keep in mind what the standard is. We keep in mind, like Prabhupada quoted, Mahajano Yena Kata Sapanta, that we have to make sure that we're actually following the path chalked out by the Acharyas, especially by Srila Prabhupada, and that we're not being too inventive or too speculative. Okay, text 250.
Thank you, Prabhu. Suni Prabhu Krodhe Koila Krishna Dosat Gara Thengala Na Utila Prabhu Padu
So, translation.
Pranath, you can mute him here. Yeah.
Okay. Translation. Hearing the foolish student, the Lord became greatly angry and rebuked Lord Krishna in various ways. Taking up a stick, he rose to strike the student. So this is interesting. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was angry. He was angry twice over. He was angry at the student for his foolish offensiveness. And this verse also says, where is it? Krode Kaile Krishna Doshodgara. He was angry at Krishna himself and also angry at the student. Purport. It is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam that when Uddhava came from Lord Krishna with a message for the gopis, all the gopis, especially Srimati Radharani, denounced Krishna in various ways. Such denunciations, however, reflect an exuberant, loving attitude that an ordinary man cannot understand. When the foolish student questioned Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Chaitanya similarly rebuked Lord Krishna in loving exuberance. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in the mood of the gopis and the student advocated the cause of Sri Krishna, Lord Chaitanya was greatly angry. Seeing his anger, the foolish student, who was an ordinary atheistic smarta brahmana, foolishly misjudged him. Thus he and a party of students were ready to strike the Lord in retaliation. After this incident, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to take sannyas so that people would not commit offenses against him. Considering him an ordinary householder, for in India, even now, a sannyasi is naturally offered respect. This is very interesting. First of all, about Mahaprabhu's anger against a student. As will come out in the story, I'm not sure how much of it we'll read today, but the student, first he asked his foolish question, then Mahaprabhu got angry at him and actually chased him away with a stick. And then that student, he went to all of the other students in town, big mass of students, and started making politics against Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Oh, he chastised me like this. Prabhupada explained that he was a puffed up, smarta brahmana. Oh, just Nimai Pandit, he's insulted a smarta brahmana. We should make politics against him. So, practically the whole student community of Navadvip was blaspheming Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then Prabhupada explains that this was part of the impetus for him taking sannyas, because sannyasi automatically, at least at that time, people would respect. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we'll hear in a few verses, even actually said, I came here to engage everyone in devotional service, but instead of me doing that, everyone is becoming blasphemous. So he decided to change his tactics, change his plans. So that was his anger at the student, but he was also angry at Krishna. And this is again part of the Gopi Bhav. And Prabhupada explains that this is based on the events of what happened with Lord Krishna sending his dear friend and student and associate Uddhava to the gopis to pacify them. So I wanted to share a little bit of that from the Krishna book so we can understand what is being referred to here. In chapter 47 of the Krishna book, going back first to chapter 46. In the meantime, Uddhava, a cousin brother of Krishna's, came to see Krishna from Dwarka. He was the son of Vasudev's brother and was almost the same age as Krishna. His bodily features resembled Krishna almost exactly. After Krishna returned from his teacher's home, he was pleased to see Uddhava, who happened to be his dearmost friend. Krishna wanted to send him to Vrindavan with a message to the residents to pacify their deep feelings of separation. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Yeyata mam prapadyante tamstataiva badamyaham. Krishna is very responsive. He responds in proportion to the devotee's advancement in devotional service. Thus, as the gopis were thinking of Krishna in separation 24 hours a day, so Krishna was also always thinking of the gopis, Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, and the other residents of Vrindavan. Although he appeared to be away from them, he could understand how they were transcendently aggrieved, and so he immediately wanted to send Uddhava to give them a message of solace. So this is the setting up of Uddhava's visit to Vrindavan. Uddhava is Krishna's cousin, the son of a brother, one of Vasudeva's brothers, and they were very close. They were great friends. Actually, it's said that outside of the Vrindavan devotees, Uddhava is the topmost devotee outside of Vrindavan. And actually, this description, it covers 2 chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's very important. And he was so intelligent. It's also said he was a disciple of Brihaspati. So how intelligent and learned he was. And so learned that he was actually Krishna's advisor. He was one of the friends who served as advisors to Krishna. If Krishna had some problem, some issue, he would ask Uddhava's advice. So when he remembered that, oh, all the residents of Vrindavan are missing me so much, because remember not Caitanya Mahaprabhu, when Krishna left Vrindavan, he actually told all of them, oh, I'm just going to do some business in Mathura, but I'm coming right back. But he didn't come back. So the gopis, and actually those words that Krishna said, I'm coming back, even though he didn't come back, remembering those words was practically the only thing that was keeping the residents of Vrindavan alive, the hope that Krishna would return. So knowing this, and Krishna always reciprocating with devotees, he thought, oh, let me send my dearmost devotee Uddhava, who even shares Krishna's bodily features, looks very much like him, and sent him to pacify the residents of Vrindavan. So he went to Vrindavan. He came in the evening. He met, first he met Nanda Maharaj. And just like last week, we heard how Srivas Thakur spent the whole night long telling Krishna's pastimes to Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So similarly, Uddhava also spent all night long discussing with Nanda Maharaj, telling him how Krishna is doing, what Krishna is doing, everything that was going on in Mathura, and recounting Krishna's love for his devotees there, very beautifully like that. And this whole night was spent in that with Nanda Maharaj. And then after that, the next day, Uddhava went and met with the gopis. And this is in the next chapter, chapter 47. This is also so beautiful and heartbreaking. Let's see. And this is also the anger of the gopis, because the gopis, they love Krishna so much, and sometimes that love is expressed in man. There are different ways that the gopis express their love, sometimes in meeting and sometimes in separation. And in separation, sometimes this man or anger comes, but it's simply another expression of love for Krishna. From chapter 47, the gopis say, we know that you are a most confidential associate of Krishna, and that he has therefore sent you to Vrindavan to give solace to his father and mother. We can understand that family affection is very strong. Even great sages who have taken to the renounced order of life cannot give up family affection cent per cent. Sometimes they think of their family members. Krishna has therefore sent you to his father and mother. Otherwise, he has no further business in Vrindavan. He is now in town. What does he have to know about Vrindavan village or the cows' pasturing grounds? They are not at all useful for Krishna because he is now a man of the city. So this is the sort of subtle criticism of Krishna that the gopis are making. First criticizing, oh, he's attached to his family. Even the great sages, what to speak of ordinary people, they're attached to his family. So he sent some messenger to pacify his father and mother. But as for us, he has nothing to do with us anymore. He's a big man in the city. He has his city business. We're simple cowherds. He has nothing to do with us anymore. Continuing, the gopis say, surely he has nothing to do with persons who do not happen to be his family members. Friendship with those outside the family continue as long as there is some selfish interest in them. Otherwise, why should one bother about those outside the family? Specifically, a person attached to the wives of others is interested in them as long as there is a need of sense gratification, like the bumblebees who have interest in the flower, as long as they want to take the honey out of it. It is psychologically very natural that a prostitute does not care for her paramour as soon as he loses his money. Similarly, when the citizens find that a government is incapable of giving them full protection, they leave the country. A student, after finishing his education, gives up his relationship with the teacher in the school. A priest, after taking his reward from the worshiper, gives him up. When the fruit season is over, birds are no longer interested in the tree. Just after eating in the house of a host, the guest gives up his relationship with him. After a forest fire, there is a scarcity of green grass, so deer and other animals give up the forest. And so a man, after enjoying his girlfriend, gives up his connection with her. So this is very strong criticism, comparing Krishna, that he's like a prostitute or like an ingrate or like a poorly run country or a greedy priest who, once he gets his money, doesn't care anymore. Like the tree, once the fruit is gone, the birds don't care anymore. So saying, oh, Krishna is like this. So this is the anger, and this is the anger that Caitanya Mahaprabhu was expressing, was understanding. And again, a materialistic person like that Smarta Brahmana could not understand that this anger is the highest expression of love. That Lord Krishna, when he feels the anger of the gopis, the insults of the gopis, it gets 100 times more ecstasy from that than he does from just ordinary prayers of glorification. Oh God, you're so great. Oh God, you're so wonderful. Oh God, you're so powerful. He enjoys these insults from the gopis even more. And especially the example of the bee is given, that the bee enjoys the flower as long as it's there to extract the honey, and then it goes away. So that leads up to the next part of this pastime, that one of the Bhagavatam says one of the gopis, and the Acharyas say that this gopi was actually Radhika. And actually, let's backtrack a little to the question about chanting the name of Radha. Radha is not mentioned by name in the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. Her presence is hinted at, just like in the Rasa dance, when Krishna left all the gopis in the Rasa dance and went off with just one other gopi. It's what's that? Anaya Radito Nunam Bhagavan Haririshwara. That Yano Vihaya Govinda Pritoyam Anayadraha. That, oh, Krishna has left us and gone off with this one gopi, Anaya Radito Nunam. That this one gopi who has worshipped Krishna better than any others. So indirectly, Anai Aradita. So indirectly, the name of Radha is mentioned, but not directly mentioned. And similarly, in this pastime, the Bhagavatam simply says, a certain gopi started speaking. So Radha is not mentioned by name, but the Acharyas explain that this is Radha. So if even Shukadev Goswami was so shy about mentioning the name of Radhika, we can also understand that in our bhajan, how to understand and properly worship and appreciate the name of Radha, that it's a very special and a very private and not a very public thing. But anyway, this one gopi, Prabhupada writes, was so much absorbed in thoughts of Krishna by dint of her personal touch with him that she actually began to talk with a bumblebee, which was flying there and trying to touch her lotus feet. While the other gopis were talking with Krishna's messenger, Uddhava, Srimati Radharani took that bumblebee to be a messenger from Krishna and began to talk with it as follows. Bumblebee, you are accustomed to drinking honey from flower to flower, and therefore you have preferred to be a messenger of Krishna, who is of the same nature as you. I can see on your mustaches the red powder of kumkum, which was smeared on the flower garland of Krishna while it was pressed against the breasts of some other girl who is my competitor. You feel very proud of having touched that garland, and your mustaches have become reddish. You have come here carrying a message for me, anxious to touch my feet. But dear Bumblebee, let me warn you, don't touch me. I don't want any message from your unreliable master. You are the unreliable servant of an unreliable master. So this is not only Radharani's ecstasy of criticizing Krishna as untrustworthy, but she's also even indirectly insulting Uddhava, because she's speaking to the bumblebee, but she's saying you are the unreliable servant of an unreliable master. So anyway, that's enough description of that. But this is to understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's expression of anger. This is his anger. He was in the mood of the gopis and thinking, oh, how could Krishna leave the gopis alone? And actually in the rasa dance, even Krishna himself admits that he was at fault for neglecting the gopis. That napariyeham niravadya samyuja, that I have committed a great offense by neglecting you, and your service to me is so great that even after a lifetime of Lord Brahma, I cannot repay you for your love to me. So this is the love that the gopis have, and this is the love that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was expressing. So this is his anger. The Lord became greatly angry and rebuked Lord Krishna, and taking up a stick, he rose to strike the student. Okay, text 251.
Very beautiful. Thank you so much Prabhu, for covering. Very nice. Bhaye bhaye palaya padaya Prabhu pache pache daya aste vyaste bhaktagana Prabhu re rahaya.
Translation. The student ran away in fear, and the Lord followed him. But somehow or other, the devotees checked the Lord. It's nice, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was in ecstasy, but he was like in an ecstasy of anger, which is anger at Krishna and anger at this student that he was chasing him with a stick, and he had to be restrained. So I like that. That's very beautiful scene. Text 252.
Prabhu re shanta kari anila nija ghare paduya palaya gela paduya sabhare.
Translation. The devotees pacified the Lord and brought him home, and the student ran away to an assembly of other students. Text 253.
Paduya sahasrayaham pade ekathani Prabhura bruttanta dvija kahe taha yai.
Translation. The Brahmana student ran to a place where 1,000 students were studying together. There he described the incident to them. I'll just say here, I'm joking, but I'm half joking that even 500 years ago, cancel culture was a thing. Just see. Purport. In this verse, we find the word dvija, indicating that the student was a Brahmana. Actually, in those days, only members of the Brahmana class became students of Vedic literature. Schooling is meant especially for Brahmanas. Previously, there was no question of schooling for Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, or Sudras. Kshatriyas used to learn the technology of warfare, and Vaishyas learned business from their fathers or other businessmen. They were not meant to study the Vedas. At present, however, everyone goes to school and everyone is given the same type of education, although no one knows what the result will be. The result, however, is most unsatisfactory, as we have seen in the Western countries especially. The United States has vast educational institutions where everyone is allowed to receive an education, but the result is that most students become like hippies. Higher education is not meant for everyone. Only selected individuals trained in Brahmanical culture should be allowed to pursue a higher education. Educational institutions should not aim to teach technology, for a technologist cannot properly be called educated. A technologist is a Sudra. Only one who studies the Vedas may properly be called a learned man, Pandit. The duty of a Brahmana is to become learned in the Vedic literature and to teach the Vedic knowledge to other Brahmanas. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we are simply teaching our students to become fit Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. In our school at Dallas, the students are learning English and Sanskrit, and through these two languages, they are studying all our books, such as Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita as it is, and the Nectar of Devotion. It is a mistake to educate every student as a technologist. There must be a group of students who become Brahmanas. Without Brahmanas who study the Vedic literature, human society will be entirely chaotic. Any question or comment on either this verse and purport or anything we've discussed so far?
Very nicely presented, Prabhupada. And though many men of this world may not accept what he said, but it is makes sense. What is the education means?
Right.
Doesn't mean technologist. Because in Vedic culture, coming from the Vedic culture, I know that a carpenter, his son also by natural he learns. He didn't have to go to carpentry. But when I went to college, one of the prestigious college, they taught me how to do carpentry work. I could not do it. Even though I went to the college. Briefly they taught. So it's a natural for them. They learn it from family itself. They
Right.
didn't big degree for becoming an architect or carpenter. But yeah, real education is education of scriptures. It's Brahmanas, which is some will be qualified,
Right.
and they can enter into this. That way, people are not jobless. Every day we get a call. Can you please find a job for us? Can you please?
Right.
In the temples, they come to temples and looking for help also all the time. Everybody comes to temple to look for help. Jobless people also come. I don't know about Dhananjay, but I get calls. Can you please take care of it?
Right.
I like this purpose very much and very clear, but it cannot be understood by others in general, I think.
Yeah. Some of it can, like even there are some people in society nowadays, there's starting to be a little bit more discussion about how college education is seen as the only path to economic advancement, but things like trade schools and vocational schools actually make a lot more sense for most people. So even that is being recognized a little bit, but without the addition of education and Krishna consciousness, then it'll never work out very nicely.
Yeah.
And Prabhupada said that you go to college, the person goes to college, which is supposed to be education, something like Brahminical life, intellectual life. But as soon as they graduate, what do? Door to door. Oh, my dear sir, please, I'm begging, give me a job. Oh, please give me a job. So Prabhupada explained that this begging door to door for a job, this is the business of a Sudra, not of a Brahmana.
Right.
Yeah. That's why actually it's very nice in the 7th canto when the Varnashram is explained by, I think it's Narada Muni preaching to Yudhishthira Maharaj, and he's explaining Varnashram. And he explains that one's caste, one's Varna is known not just by theoretically, but by vritti. Vritti means by livelihood. That if you're collecting a salary, if you're working for others, then that means whatever, however intellectual you may be, that means that that's actually Sudra life. And if you're an entrepreneur and working for yourself and developing your own business and creating wealth, then you're a Vaishya. And if you're completely independent, then you're a Brahmana. So it's not just learning facts in the school or having excuse me, having MA, BA, PhD, that's not what makes a Brahmana. But how are you actually living? That's actual Brahmana. So someone may claim to be a Brahmana, but if you're collecting a paycheck, then at least in the traditional Varnashram sense, you're not a Brahmana. But the real thing, like Prabhupada says, in our Krishna consciousness movement, we are simply teaching our students to become fit Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. This is the actual point. Yeah, very nice point Prabhupada is making here. Anything else, question or comment on this, discussion on this?
I will let devotees speak something, because if they have question,
Yeah.
this whole paragraph purport has to be understood in proper context. People may challenge, hey, why against education? It's not against reading or writing books. It's against trying to commercialize education system, to train you something which is already, you can get it from the culture. So many people are, after spending so much of money in schools, they're still in anxiety, what I need to do. They
Right.
spend the money, they do graduation, but they don't accept that path of career. Neither they get an opportunity to do also. We have to recognize this this shortcoming of the society.
Right.
It's very, very nice. That's the practicality. Everyone will be
Yeah.
have job with
And even if it can't be changed, because changing the whole society is difficult and could take years or generations or lifetimes, but at least if the education of Krishna consciousness is added, then even one is college student or dropout or intellectual or not intellectual or carpenter, what's that? Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi Sudra, Kane Nai, Ye Krishna. No, that's not the one I'm thinking of. Naham Vipro Nachar Narapatir Napi Vaisho Nasudro. Naham Varni Nachagriya Patir Nabanosti Yatirva. That at least whatever you're doing, college, not college, whatever your job may be, rich or poor, whatever your degree of Janmaishwarya Shruta Shri is, you may be in a good family or a degraded family, you may be rich or poor, you may be learned or ignorant, you may be beautiful or ugly, but none of those things actually apply. You just have to become the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. Does anyone else have a question or comment or discussion? It's almost 9, so. Okay.
Hare
Krishna Prabhu.
Oh,
Amen.
yes, go ahead, please.
Pranam Prabhu. I just, wanted to make a comment about how you said the imitation thing, like you said the story about the horse.
Yes,
That was really educational. That was really nice, and the whole class was so beautiful.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yeah, and like I said, if we remember last week's reading, also there was that sort of tension or balance that Caitanya Mahaprabhu was hearing these wonderful, amazing pastimes, but he was also behaving in such a proper way according to rules and regulations and even ordinary considerations that, not to touch feet, or ordinary considerations like now he's thinking, oh, I should take sannyas. Sannyas has no particular benefit in and of itself, but the benefit for Caitanya Mahaprabhu was, oh, at least people will respect me. So instead of committing offenses, they'll listen to what I have to say and they'll take up the chanting of the holy name. So and also in today's reading, we also saw that this amazing high ecstasy that Caitanya Mahaprabhu had, being exactly in the mood of Radharani and the mood of the gopis and feeling this ecstasy, but also considering the rules and regulations, and you could say the down-to-earth aspect of it also, that, okay, I'm in this ecstasy of Radharani and the gopis, but I also want to teach Krishna consciousness. So on the earth, on the ground, what practical steps do I take How do I behave? What do I do? What plans do I make to spread Krishna consciousness? So this is, I like this very much, this balancing of these two different sides. And this is something Prabhupada also did so beautifully and so expertly, that he was experiencing the highest ecstasy of Krishna consciousness, but he could come to America, so hellish, degraded place. It was hellish then and it's hellish now. But he could come and preach to people and meet them on their own level and give them Krishna consciousness. In fact, some of Prabhupada's godbrothers, they would even sometimes criticize Prabhupada, saying, oh, he was able to do that just because he's able to mix with low-class persons, not understanding that he was on the most highest elevated level, but his mercy and his compassion and intelligence was such that he could meet anyone at any level and give them Krishna consciousness, which is what Caitanya Mahaprabhu is also doing. He's experiencing the highest ecstasies, but he's making plans and making arrangements to spread Krishna consciousness to everyone.
Very
Yes,
nice.
Prabhu. I missed the part like why was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu angry towards the students? Because I missed the connection.
The reason that Prabhupada explains is because that student was taking the chat, because he was, first of all, because the student was interrupting his ecstasy. His
Because he was
ecstasy of
the
being in the
Gopi
mood
Bhav
of the
and saying
gopis.
Gopi, Gopi, that's why.
Yes,
Oh.
he was interrupting that ecstasy, and not just interrupting it, but he was interrupting it in a very ignorant way, saying, "Oh, why are you chanting Gopi Gopi? Where's the punya in that?" And so the student was not understanding that the holy name of Krishna and the holy name of all of his most intimate associates has nothing to do with material punya. And that's actually one of the 10 offenses against the holy name, to consider the chanting of the holy name like mundane religious ceremonies. So because of that offensiveness and disturbing his meditation, the Lord became angry
Yes, Prabhu.
at the
I'm
student.
clear now. Yeah, thank
Does
you.
that make sense?
Yeah.
It was
Yes.
also another kind of ecstasy of his, that he was in the mood of the gopis and already feeling angry at Krishna. That, oh, why is Krishna leaving the gopis? Why is Krishna not reciprocating properly with Radharani and the gopis? So he's already in that angry mood. And then that student also was behaving actually offensively to question Chaitanya Mahaprabhu like that. So that was the reason given for that anger. And also, it's all part of Krishna's plan, all part of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's plan. That's looking at it from maybe a higher vantage point, that it's all part of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's plan, that, okay, the students criticized him, therefore he would take sannyas. And when he took sannyas, then he was able to leave home and travel all over India and spread Krishna consciousness to the whole of India, and travel to Vrindavan and do all the work he did there, and live in Jagannath Puri. Without this impetus from the rascal student community, of course, Lord Chaitanya has his plan. Nothing is going to change that. But that was the reason why he took sannyas and was able to travel and live at Jagannath Puri. And all of these pastimes happened on the pretext of this rascal student community criticizing him. So that's another way to look at it from sort of a broader vantage point. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhu. It's very nice. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, it's 9
So,
o'clock.
so
We'll end.
fortunate to hear all of it.
I'm sorry?
We are so fortunate to hear
Yes.
from you, Prabhu. Rakesh.
Yes, when we look at this tradition and how it's the most accessible to everyone, yet at the same time giving the very highest thing. Because normally, materially, when we think, oh, the very highest thing, that's the thing that's the most impossible to get. And if something is easy to get, it must not have any real value. But Krishna consciousness is both. It's the topmost thing, but it's made so readily available to us. So we can't even imagine the fortune we have. So thank you, everybody, for your very kind attention. Next week is the appearance of Lord Nityananda Trayodasi next Wednesday. So the class on Wednesday will be about that. And I hope to see all of you or some of you there for that also. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Everyone have a wonderful day. Please accept my obeisances.
Very, very
Thank you so much, Prabhu.